Nick, this was a great win for Seattle because that guy didn't have his best game last night, and they were still able to win. How impressive are the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, and I thought Russ played really, really well, aside from the one anomaly, which was he throws a pass, it gets batted back to him. He tries to bat it down like you're taught, and instead of batting it down, he propels it directly to a Minnesota Viking, which ends up being a pick six, which at least temporarily flipped the game. But I thought Seattle, a team that I've been very critical of over the last couple of years, even though a team I like a lot, because they are too dedicated to the run game. They saw that Minnesota, and Russ talked about it after the game, Minnesota was going to stay in too high safety the whole game, basically dare them to run the football, try to make sure that things like the 60-yard pass they did connect with Tamor wouldn't happen, and dare them to run. So they said, okay, we'll run the ball on you for 200 yards. And once again, Seattle and this Russell Wilson offense finds a way to win a game where the defense doesn't play great. This was the 7th time that the Seahawks have allowed at least 25 points, and in those games, they're 5-2.
Yeah.
The whole league, when you allow that, the Giants are 1-9, the Panthers are 2-5. The teams that allow that many points that often don't typically win. Seattle's been winning that way all year, and you alluded to it in the open, Jenna. You lose this game, and all of a sudden, you're that 5 seed, to making sure you're still in good shape for the playoffs, but your ability to win your division and your ability to get a bye are essentially eliminated. You win the game, and now all of a sudden, the Niners, after being one of the, I think, the last undefeated team in football, they are staring at the 5 seed, and Seattle is looking at potentially home field advantage going through their stadium. So a huge win, impressive win, and I thought Russ, even if the stat line doesn't show it, played really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot there. Why was this a big game for the Seattle Seahawks? Because of what you said, home field advantage. When you look at this year, the first 2 losses, all right, they're only losses, Baltimore, New Orleans at home, all right. They need to fix that right away when they get into the playoffs because they have everything they need. When you look at the 5 10-2 teams, the Saints, the Ravens, 49ers, you got the Seahawks, and you have the Patriots. Out of all those teams, the scariest team is the Seahawks. Why? Because they have Russell Wilson, who's the X-Factor, who doesn't need weapons, but he has weapons. They have a running game, a ground and pound running game.
They do now.
But they're also dynamic with their running game. Some people just hand the ball off and they just, hey, let's just go down their throat. But these guys, the schemes and how they dial it up, it's unbelievable. But the thing that's going to get them beat is those 2 things, right? Home field advantage, 1. And then the second thing that you said was their defense.
Defense has not been great.
Well, here's the reason why. Because they have done the same thing over and over and over again for almost 10 years. Everyone knows the blueprint. Everyone has the blueprint. Everyone knows their job, like the linebacker's job in the entire NFL. So I know if I go 3 by 1 and it's 3rd and short, I know exactly what everybody on the defense is doing. Going into the playoffs, if they want to win the Super Bowl and they're in this prime moment, they have to clean that up. We all know what their defense does, their responsibilities. Have to clean it up because you have too much on the offensive side that can literally take you to the Super Bowl and win it.
So here's one of the reasons, just quickly, why I think Seahawk fans this morning should be so happy about where their team is right now. Before the year, I said I thought Seattle could win this division. That was a minority opinion. Yeah. Most people thought Seattle overachieved last year by finding its way into the playoffs, and that this year, with how loaded the NFC was, with the Niners coming on strong, people thought the Rams were going to be better than they've been thus far this year, that this was really year 2 of a multi-year, don't call it rebuilding, but retooling for Seattle. That next year, when DK Metcalf is a year older, when Rashad Penny, you find out what you have in the former first-round pick, when you have a real replacement for Doug Baldwin, when the defense is further rebuilt, that next year would be the year Seattle could get back to the championship-level expectations. Well, they are there already. Like, they are a team that absolutely nobody wants to face because they can beat you so many different ways. And because if the Seahawks' weakness is defense, that means it's a weakness that because of the history there and the talent of Bobby Wagner, Jadeveon Clowney, Trey Flowers, you feel like if that's their weakness with that much big talent, at least on one player on each level, it's something that in an individual playoff game might actually turn into a strength.
And if that is their weakness, they're still 10-2. They're still undefeated on the road.
Yep.
They now have a run game, which you saw from Rashard Penny and Chris Carson last night. You still have Russell Wilson there as an MVP candidate. But we talk so much about ramping your team up to get to the playoffs. Like, you want your team playing your best football when you have a couple games left, right?
Yeah.
So you build that momentum going in. Pete Carroll talked about this after the game last night. How well prepared is this team as far as being ramped up and in the greatest place right now as you get ready for the playoffs?
I'm laughing because I don't know if you guys remember, but I was there last year, okay? I played for the Seattle Seahawks last year. So when we talk about ramping up, they're never ramping up. They're always ramped up with Coach Carroll. Every single day is a championship day. When you walk in the team meeting room at 8 a.m. in the morning, you have loud music. You have 10 guys standing up shooting the basketball. That's why they're so good. And to your point where you're like, man, this team, like, who would have thought that this team would be here right now? This was supposed to be a rebuild, a revamp, whatever you want to call it. But the reason why is because of Pete Carroll and everything that trickles down from there. He sets the standard every single day. Russell Wilson sets the standard every single day. Bobby Wagner sets the standard every single day. I've been on 6, 7 different teams. I don't even know now. I don't even know how many teams I played on. But I've been on so many teams, and I'm telling you, what they have there is special from a leadership and a culture standpoint. It's like no other place in the National Football League. It's unbelievable.
And your point about the being there last year in a year where it was the first time in the Wilson-Carroll era, the year before, they had missed the playoffs. Now, they still had won 9 games, but they were coming off what was the worst year that they had had. And even last year, you're saying every day it was a championship mentality.
Every day.
Every day it was not a, listen, we are from the outside looking in, we're retooling or rebuilding. It was, why can't we do what we did in the beginning of the Wilson-Carroll era, which is go to and win a Super Bowl? Why can't we do that again?
Here's the scary thing about this team and Russell Wilson. Actually, when they lost Richard Sherman, they lost Doug Baldwin. All right, now I have some insight because I was there. I think that made Russell Wilson better. You think about all of that tension that the defense, offense, Russell, all these stories that came out. I was actually there and I was able to witness, like, man, they have too much turmoil from the defensive side to the offensive side. Now this is Russell Wilson's team. Yep. Look at this guy, man. We all know the talent that he has physically, but the mental capacity that he has to be able to lead his team week in and week out is like no other. But now you don't have the distraction of a Richard Sherman, a Doug Baldwin, and all these other big ego guys that's really like taking your place as the leader. This is his team. Now let's see what he does with it.
All right, well, with a Monday Night Football win last night over the Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks are now at 10-2. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.